Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the General Government Subcommittee of the Senate Finance Committee and Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. Thank you all for being here. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblymember Backus. Assemblymember Koenig. Assemblymember O'Neill. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett. Assemblymember Watts. Senator Buck. Senator Taylor. Assemblymember Anderson. And Chair Scheibel.
Here, thank you so much. All right, this morning we are going to be hearing from the Department of Agriculture. I believe we have 3 budget accounts on our agenda, but we will start with a presentation from the department before we move on to the budgets and questions on those specifically. I will hand it over to our fabulous presenters here to go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Director Goycochea, for the record, Goicoechea with Department of Agriculture. We have brought our phone a friend, including our half of deputy back there who is having a little difficulty navigating this morning, but we got him in here. So as we go through it all, we'll have Administrator Balkin walk through our presentations on the individual budgets. If that works for you, then we can rest for questions after those individual budgets. And if we need some help from the gallery, we'll bring them up.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Kathy Balkin, B-A-L-C-O-N, and I serve as the administrator of the Administrative Services Division at the Department of Agriculture. I am going to bump up in our presentation. I'm going to start with budget account 4554 in a second here. I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview currently of our department. So our mission at the Department of Agriculture is to preserve, protect, and promote Nevada agriculture. And then as you can see, our leadership is Director Dr. Goycochea and Deputy Director Douglas Ferris. The annual governor's recommended budget for FY26 is $274,164,000. FY27, $273,646,000, and then the total FTE is 173. A little bit of our agency overview. So we have 3 offices. We have our Sparks, which is our headquarters, Las Vegas, as well as Elko. And then we do have 2 of our warehouses in Sparks and Las Vegas. And then just going through some of our divisions, we have our Division of Administrative Services, our Division of Animal Industry, where we have Administrator Sustanovich and Deputy Administrator Dawson, our Division of Food and Nutrition with Administrator Hoppy and Deputy Administrator Malley, and then our Division of Measurement Standards with Administrator Strajewski, and then our Division of Plant Health and Compliance with Administrator Brown and Deputy Administrator Saliga. All right, so I will jump ahead. I'm going to start with 4554 budget account, which is our Division of Administrative Services. So the Division of Administrative Services centralizes the budgeting, payroll, information technology, communication, and economic development functions for the Department of Agriculture. So some of the programs that we do have within Administrative Services is our Board of Agriculture, our fiscal, IT, communications, industry development and marketing, agriculture literacy, our craft beverage passport, the meat and poultry inspection program, and our Nevada Junior Livestock Show. All right, so with 4554 Enhancement 684, we have a new Information Technology Technician 4 position. This is currently a contracted position and has been funded under contract by Marathon Staffing since early 2023. And then E710, which is replacement equipment. This is a one-shot appropriation, and it's just IT equipment, hardware replacement, and software renewals. Did you want to ask questions on 4554?
Sure. So just to be clear, I'll open up the budget hearing on account 101-4554. I think we have a question from Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. I actually have 3 questions, and it's specifically on Enhancement 684 regarding that information technology technician 4 position. I think I recall from last session, we had approved a contract person to do some of the backlog work. So my question is, because obviously now you want to seek a permanent position, how has the department's information technology needs increased in the recent years?
Thank you for the question, Assembly Member. For the record, Kathy Balkin. So with this position, we have currently created within the department a new infrastructure program with the installation of Wi-Fi through our different offices. We have our Reno warehouse and our new Las Vegas warehouse where we have new IT needs down at that warehouse, replacement of our wireless access points in our Sparks headquarters, new backup network connection for the Elko office, and then moving into something that was new and very important to not only the state but our department is information security. So replacement of single sign-ons for internal applications and to make our grant funding secured. So as we are doing these internally, we are using our senior staff to take care of all of these new projects that we have had come forward. And so having this IT4 technician be permanent, they would be the ones dealing with our day-to-day help desk issues instead of taking those senior staff members.
Okay, and then circling back to the backlogs, because I know that's what we were addressing last session. What is the unit's current level of project backlogs? I'm not sure if they were able to bring it up to speed with that contract position, because it sounds like there was other needs for IT. And how has that been affected by the current staffing constraints?
Assemblymember, thank you. Madam Chair, may I go direct?
Please do.
Okay. Assemblymember Director Goycochea for the record. So we continue to have some projects that are backlog. We did recently lose one staff member on our apps team, which was very instrumental. We are developing a lot of in-house apps as well, so I want to make sure we point that out as we do real-time 24/7 animal entry permits, for example. That was developed within our department by our team there. And also as we continue to respond to high-path avian influenza, that team is very aggressive in what we're putting on the internet, how we're tracking that. So as we take them away from the day-to-day projects that we need, i.e. our warehouse in Las Vegas, we still have to get down there. We have to tie all that together. We have to tie those alarms on those refrigerators and freezers in, so we're sure when we're getting those alerts in real time. So we are continuing to see a little bit of a backlog there. I understand that, we do have a good team and they work very hard, but we are also right now in the middle of a remodel. And as part of that remodel, we're pulling all new cabling throughout a lot of the headquarters. And so that IT team has actually been working until midnight some nights and trying to get us back as we get back to our desks. And we have half of that headquarters yet to go this week and into the first part of next week as we try to get those into those workstations. So we continue to see a backlog there as we ask those to do that work. The day-to-day stuff that we need, i.e. the security, for example, is taking a back seat, and so that is why we are asking for this position to become full-time.
Thank you so much for that. And it sounds like you guys have a lot of projects, but I know you run like a lean agency director. My question would be then, if this new position was approved, the IT4 position, would you still need your contracted position? I know you also have that vacancy position, so if that was filled, ultimately with those two situations getting filled, would you need the contract position on top of that?
So Member Bacchus, Director Goycochea, for the record, no, if this were to become a full-time state position, we would not be requesting a contract position. We feel if we were 100% staffed in-house, we would be able to meet our needs going into the future.
Absolutely. I believe Assemblymember Watts also has a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I want to move to another item, which is the language access plan. So I know that we allocated some funding to support the department in implementing its language access plan, I believe at the December Interim Finance Committee meeting. Can you just provide us an update on how that's going so far, what's been accomplished, and also where things look in terms of the ability to spend those funds, because anything that's not spent by the end of this fiscal year is going to revert.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. Sierra Russell, for the record. It's Ciararessel. For our language access plan, we are currently in the process of hiring a language access coordinator to put that program together and start implementing our plan. We actually have interviews scheduled for tomorrow. As for our spending plan to utilize those funds from the December IFC meeting, we plan on implementing our cultural competency training. We have already identified a potential vendor. It should take approximately a month to bid out and contract that, and then that should be organized and completed before June 30th of 2025. We also have identified a statewide contract vendor for the translation of vital documents and interpretation services. And so for translation of vital documents in particular, we're looking at about 2 to 3 weeks once that is ready to go. So that should be completed before that June 30th deadline as well. And the anticipated translation services will, we anticipate those funds to be spent before that time as well.
Thank you for that. And then can you just talk a little bit about the department's need for an ongoing position for the language access plan implementation after kind of some of these initial pieces have been completed?
Absolutely. So public health and safety is obviously our top priority. 30% of Nevadans identify as having limited English skills or limited English proficiency, and that's per the 2020 U.S. Census. 62% of farm workers, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, are also more comfortable speaking Spanish. So when we have these food safety instances or public health and safety instances, we have to be able to get that information out to them. Worker protections, that information needs to be available to them in a format that they're most likely to understand. And so the language access plan and the availability of information in languages other than just English is really critical.
Absolutely. And Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I think we're going to have likely one follow-up too. Can you talk about a little bit about the role that the Office of New Americans played in helping your agency develop the language access plan?
Sierra Russell, for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember. Yes, so we first developed our language access plan in 2022. That was the first iteration of the language access plan, and the Office of New Americans was involved in the providing guidance in developing what that plan was and really setting the bones for that plan.
And I know that your agency is one of the few agencies that requested funding for those the language access plan implementation as well. Can you talk a little bit about the information that you received in regards to requesting these funds?
Thank you, Assemblymember Sierra Russell, for the record. I might need some clarification on the question. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just know so few agencies requested it, so I'm wondering, how did your agency know that these funds were available, and can you talk a little bit about the application process?
Yes, Sierra Russell, for the record. We were notified by the Office of New Americans of a funding opportunity and they did provide guidance on how to apply for those funds and the process to go through and request those funds from IFC.
Okay, thank you. I also noticed in your plan, in this budget item, there's no other funding that is provided for the language access plan for the 25 to 27 biennium. Aside from this position, are you all expecting any additional expenses to be incurred in order to implement your language access plan?
Sierra Russell, for the record. And Administrator Balkin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those funds have been cost allocated and built into our future budget.
All right, any other questions on this budget account? Not seeing any, we will close the hearing on budget account 4554 and go back to your presentation, which I'm guessing is going to open up a hearing on another budget account.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy Balkin for the record. Yes, we will move on to budget account 4554, our Division of Health, Plant Health and Compliance. So the purpose of Plant Health and Compliance Division serves Nevada by protecting plant health. It monitors for diseases and invasive species, conducts inspections and laboratory testing, and registers and certifies vendors. A couple of the programs underneath Plant Health and Compliance are Seed Certification Program, Noxious Weed, Specialty Crop, Nursery Program, Hemp Program, Plant Pathology. All right, so moving into 4545, E710. Here we have, oops, let me get back to where I need to be. All right. It's an ICP OES commercial fertilizer analyzer piece of equipment. We have 4545 E711, which is a liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer and nitrogen generator. E712 is a nitrogen analyzer, and an E713 a microwave digestion. So I can go into every piece of the equipment if you want, or we can go on to one of the last enhancements and then ask some questions. So the last enhancement is combination of budget account 4552 to merge into budget account 4545. This is a cost-neutral consolidation to improve efficiencies, streamline processes, and reduce duplication and redundant tasks. We noticed with this that there was a lot of fiscal administration duplication, as well as moving these funds into 4545 will help, as we have a lot of cross work happening between the two budget accounts. So one person's funded in one budget account, but then working through another. So by consolidating these, this would help one with that cross work and then duplication of fiscal administration work as well.
All right, are you ready for questions?
Yeah.
All right, then. I will formally open up the hearing on budget account 4545. And I actually have the first question. And this is about the merging of those two accounts. And you touched on this a little bit, but I mean, putting the two accounts together doesn't actually create more money. So by reducing those overhead costs, does that mean that you're laying people off? Does that mean that there are fees associated with the transactions that you're no longer going to have to pay? How does combining these two budget accounts actually save us any money?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Director Goycochea. So as Administrator Balkin started to touch on, and I will let Administrator Brown weigh in if she wishes, we do a lot of cross-coding across these two budgets. As was mentioned earlier, we're a very nimble and a very small organization. We run a tight fiscal ship, so we don't have extra employees. So a lot of these employees are doing the same work in 4545, and then they'll turn around and do work in 4552. So our fiscal team spends a lot of time coding those jobs back and forth between these two budget accounts when they're the same people and are really doing the same thing. They might be doing the same thing out in the field. For example, if we have to split their time in half that day or split what those expenses are, it seems to just be a lot of redundant work on our fiscal side, number one. Number two, if we can bring a lot of our grant money back in and put it within our fee budget as well, it's more solvency and it's better for us. We're not doing a lot of journal vouchering. We're not coming back to IFC saying, hey, we need some more authority here. We have to move things around. This has been talked about for years at the agency, and it just never was brought forward. And I think over the last 2 years, we realized in order to be more efficient and to do a better job with the taxpayers' dollars and to do a better job for our staff, we wanted to bring these two forward. And then we can buy the equipment that you see on here. It's also easier for us to cost allocate that across these different programs.
Thank you so much. And can you explain to us what a liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer is?
Administrator Brown can. I'm an animal vet.
Good morning. For the record, Megan Brown, Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance, BROWN. A liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer is a piece of equipment that we use to be able to test for pesticides. Let me pull up the right information. I thought. So this is going to replace a piece of equipment for pesticide laboratory testing, and this testing is for pesticide residue analysis for all ground and surface water, pesticide use investigations, as well as medical and recreational medical marijuana for pesticide residue analysis. This is for a 15-year-old piece of equipment.
And so is that utilized like on an as requested basis? Are you utilizing it in particular areas? Tell us a little bit more.
Okay. Megan Brown, Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance, for the record. So this is, our chemistry lab supports many of our investigation work as well as our compliance work within the department that our staff participate in, as well as for our partners. So from a regular consistency perspective, this provides support for our inspectors within our pest control and compliance program, as well as on needed basis with our partners, whether that's CCB or other partners. So it's used quite regularly. As many of the work that we do within the plant health and compliance, it's seasonal, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's directly equivalent through month to month, but is definitely used throughout the year.
And Madam Chair, if I can, Director Goykochia, for the record, in recent conversations we've had with our Division of Animal Industry, mostly veterinary services, they're asking about, as we get this new piece of equipment, can we expand our testing in-house as well? We do send a lot of samples out to Utah State, for example, Washington State, because they have this newer equipment that we don't have. If we have this in our lab, then we'll be able to do an agreement between the two divisions, and we'll be able to do more services for our customers in the field on the animal side with this piece of equipment as well.
And I'm guessing when we send things out to Utah for testing, we have to pay them to conduct those tests.
Director Goykochia, for the record, yes, that is correct. We have to pay them. So we are trying to be more nimble, number one, with our finances, but number two, timely. That when you have to ship it and it's a 2-day ship and then it's a Friday, we're waiting. If we can run that on a Friday and get answers to that veterinarian or that producer in real time, it will help not only with the pesticide side of things, but if we are actually looking for something, i.e. nitrate, that is causing a toxicity in animals.
Thank you so much. Those are all my questions. I think Co-Chair Anderson has a question next.
Thank you, Chair. And I think you just wanted to say that. Just see if you guys would have to spell it or not. So, quick question about I'm going to kind of move over to the pesticide registration fee. And to permanently increase that annual fee, how much additional fee revenue would the department anticipate by doing so?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Anderson. Kathy Balkin for the record. We would approximately see an increase of 1.276 with that fee increase. So I can separate it out for you. So currently, so by raising that fee, we're raising it from 125 to 281. So approximately 11,000 registrations per year. And we take a portion of those fees and put them into a specialized account. So I do have that broken out as well. That will also increase in that special account by 440,000. And we do conduct around 11,000 registrations per year at the 201. That does equal 2.2 million for fiscal year 26, calendar year 25. And then in the past, it was at the $85. We were only at 935,000 for calendar year 24. So it is an increase of 1.2 million.
Thank you. So good to hear. It sounds like it was just approved just a few days ago and for a temporary. But what happens if possibly it looks like, looking over the governor's recommended budgets, what if it's not approved as a permanent basis? What will happen for fiscal year 2027 in particular?
Assemblymember Anderson, Director Goykochia, for the record, and I will let either of my counterparts weigh in if they wish to. But as you said, this was just approved. That hearing was before the quarantine officer on Monday, we did approve that fee increase. So it is temporary. We will see that happen at the end of this calendar year. So we send those notifications out this fall. They're due by the 21st of December. So we will see that influx of fees come in, obviously, and then as we get into the interim, we will make the attempt to make these permanent regs. If they are not approved and we are not allowed to go forward with those permanent regs, then we would obviously go back to our previous levels. We're operating at that now. It would be difficult because that is why we are here to ask for that fee increase. I won't tell you that it isn't. And it's been a long time coming. We were probably a decade behind on that as an agency. And if you look at the other states around us, we are still lower than most of them. We're actually lower than the average of our surrounding western states still. So we will not lay anyone off, but I think our work would definitely be hampered, and especially in the one account that Administrator Balkin talked about with our groundwater monitoring for pesticides, our pesticide recycling, and then our noxious weed program. We're behind in noxious weeds in this state. We will not sit here and pretend that we're not. If we can double that amount of money that we can put on the ground, it will be very beneficial. If that is taken away, we will continue to slip farther behind on noxious weeds. Administrator Brown.
Megan Brown for the record, and I would note during both the workshop and hearing process, we had engagement from the industry, but no opposition, and so we don't anticipate that changing.
It's good to hear. Thank you so much. Just have to put it out there and be the doom and gloom. But again, just to take it one more spot, if you had to take a look at the replacement equipment in the governor's recommended budget, which is the most critical and to operations and really necessary to replace? And really, it's just so that way we can make you say all those equipments. Let's just admit it.
Administrator Megan Brown for the record. Thank you for the question. So from an age perspective, the liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer and the nitrogen generator associated with that from an age perspective is the oldest. The nitrogen analyzer and microwave digester are pieces of equipment that have failed, and so to continue to be able to do those testing, I would put those in the next. It's really important especially for continuation of services. If we do not have these machines, we are not able to either do the compliance testing that we are required to do or be able to meet the needs of investigations, which most of our investigations come from the public that have concerns. So it's really critical to be able to do that. And I would also note that most of this equipment, because of its age, the associated contracts and service agreements and computers that go with those are also of that age. And from a security perspective, those laptops are the same age as those equipment, so they are not updated to the most newest software. Sorry, I'm not an IT person either, so I apologize. And so they're not able to be on the network, which is also a challenge from being able to transfer results from that machine into our other services and LIMS. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for going through all those things, so that way we can really take a look at it. I'm actually going to go a different way for just a moment in this area. It has nothing to do with equipment. It has nothing to do with personnel. But it does have to do with the pest control, especially when we seem to have these lovely little crickets that decide to visit us every once in a while. Noticing that that is a grant at this time and can only be done every once in a while, it's not always every year that these unwanted guests come into our state. However, there is some possibilities of that happening again. So what is the plan around the cricket removal and dealing with the grant process and possibly personnel at this time?
Assemblymember Anderson, Director Goycochea, for the record, thank you for that question. So that money flows through APHIS PPQ, plant pest quarantine. And so we aren't 100% sure what that money is going to look like from year to year. We never are. We have been told earlier this year that the bucket of money that we expect to come is for all western states. Montana is expecting to get the biggest portion of that this year because they know they're going to have a significant grasshopper problem. So we are expecting to not see a lot of money, and this has happened to us in the past as well, from USDA APHIS to address this. We do have our surveys done. Our staff has done a wonderful job with that. We have submitted our spray blocks and our treatment plans to APHIS PPQ. It is not a good place to be in, but we are all actually just hoping that they go into their hibernation cycle for the most part right now and do not come out. We don't know when they're going to come out. We don't know when they're going to decide to hibernate and not come out. We're hoping we're at that cycle. The weather may actually help us. We expected to see some hatches early with that warm weather. Now we're back into cold weather. Hopefully we'll slow those down, may even get some of those killed. But that is where we are, and we are at the mercy of APHIS when it comes to those funds. Those are not state funds that we put on the ground for that program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. Any other questions on, excuse me, on budget account 4545? All right, not seeing any other questions, we will close the hearing on budget account 4545 and open up the hearing on budget account 4546. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kathy Balkin. We'll move on to the Division of Animal Industry, which has budget account 4546. So the purpose of the Division of Animal Industries is the protection of public health and safety from animal disease, theft, or loss of livestock, and unfair business practices through a variety of programs geared towards animal health investigations and enforcements of law. So some of the programs we have: veterinary medical service program, livestock inspection program, agricultural police. All right, budget account 4546, livestock inspections. This program is responsible for protecting livestock producers and owners from theft or loss of livestock and unfair business practices. Official animal identification, transportation documentation, and transfer of ownership certificates are essential to ensuring animal disease traceability and preventing introduction of diseased animals into the state, ensuring a safe food supply. The powers and duties of this division are established in NRS chapters 561, 569, 571, 574, 576, 577, 587, 583, and 584. The Livestock Identification Program monitors the intrastate and interstate movement of livestock for proof or change of ownership, and this is done through recording of brands and inspection of livestock presented for sale, shipment, or prior to slaughter. The program is also responsible for the licensing and monitoring of livestock and agricultural dealers, buyers, and public livestock auctions. And then moving on to the last portion, the agricultural police officer. The NDA's agricultural police officers protect public safety of Nevada residents and visitors, the agriculture industry and food supply chain, protection from illegal and or unintentional importation of plant and animal diseases, pests, noxious weeds, theft of livestock, and unfair business practices is ensured through performing traffic stops and inspections of vehicles carrying agricultural products, commodities, or livestock. And our APOs do work collaboratively with our state and local and federal enforcement agencies statewide at port of entry check sites. And with that, we will answer any questions.
All right, thank you. We'll start with Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Director Gokachia and your team. My question is, it has to do with the solvency of the budget. There's some concerns along that when you line up the expected, right, versus revenues versus expenditures, right? I mean, we know that last session you changed the collection rate to every 5 years, so we know it's not going to be a whole lot coming in for a little bit, right? So based upon that, do you foresee any issues with the period of collection, since we have a kind of a little, right? They have a little space there. You foresee any issues with that in terms of the solvency of the budget?
Senator Taylor, Director Goycochea, for the record, thank you for that question. And that's been an age-old question ever since 4546 was created, to be completely honest with you. So we went to that 5-year renewal You are correct. That is when we see the most of our revenue come in on that 5-year renewal cycle. So we will see that again in 28, correct, Chad, in 2028. So we see a big reserve buildup, and then we continue to spend that down over the next 5 years. I do want to note that normally we see about $850,000 in fees come in annually as far as the mileage and the actual inspecting of those animals on an annual basis. And then we have another $250,000, $250,000 roughly in livestock assessment that also goes in to fund this. Part of the reason we're seeing a little decline right now is the cycle we're in the cattle business. So there was an excellent article in the Indy just this week that talked about that. We foresee the bottoming out of this cycle in 26. So in this year we're coming up on. There was a lot of contraction. We're at the smallest beef herd we've ever been in the United States and in the state of Nevada. So that is also part of driving this. We're not doing as many inspections. As we see that bottom out and the rebuilds start to come back up in 26 and 27, we will increase the amount of fees we're gathering as far as the day-to-day inspections, and we will also see an increase in livestock assessment as they pay that annual fee into the program. So while it does look bad and we continue to spend those reserves down, we are not concerned at this point. We are doing a lot of cost-saving measures as well. Closest inspector to do the job, and we are utilizing our paid staff more and more to do those jobs rather than having to pull someone that might have to drive 100 miles to do an inspection. That just didn't make any sense. Administrator Sustanovich has done a good job in putting those inspectors in every rural community and in some valleys where we've never had them. So I am comfortable that we will be able to get through this, and we are doing cost savings. For example, on our ag police officers, we have a couple of vacant positions there now, and we do not plan on filling those immediately. Number one, they're hard to fill because they don't pay real well, and you don't find a lot of cow guys that want to be cops or cops that want to be cow guys. So we are seeing a cost saving, so I'm comfortable we'll be able to get to the renewal cycle in 28.
Thank you, Director Gooksey here. I was going to ask you about what was the plan to increase revenues or to decrease expenses, and it sounds like you're anticipating both.
Senator Taylor, thank you for the question. Director Goykochia, for the record, yes, we are anticipating both. As I said, as this cycle turns around and we see an increase in the livestock industry, that automatically will do an increase in fees for us. But we are fiscally conservative as an agency. We will continue to do so. We are going to continue to cut costs everywhere we can. And so those will be both. You are correct. And by doing both, I am confident that we'll be able to get through 28.
Okay, thank you. We all hope you're right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? I have a question. Why do we have the rebranding fees or the re-recording fees on that 5-year schedule instead of having them staggered and having everyone re-record 5 years after they first recorded? Or 5 years from the last time they recorded?
Senator Scheibel, thank you for the question. Director Goykochia, for the record, and Administrator Sustanovich can weigh in if he wishes, but a lot of that is manpower, just as we were talking about with redundancy of a lot of what our fiscal staff does. If we were to see those come in after they were initially recorded, we would have staff always trying to track those, if you will, and to put those in. So it is always, originally it was on a 4-year plan where you'd renew those every 4 years. And so we went to the 5 years when we increased that fee just a little bit, and that was at the request of the industry to try to make that. Would it make more sense to do it annually? Perhaps, but we did hear from the industry that they wanted it this way. We were comfortable in doing it this way as well. And then just for ease of manpower, if we know we have this big lift every 5 years, we can do it. If we're trying to figure out who's delinquent, who's not, when you go out and do a brand inspection, if they haven't paid and you have to deny them that brand inspection because they haven't paid, that's a very heated conversation. So we would rather everybody knows this is coming every 5 years. You get your notice, you get it turned in. That said, if I want a new brand and I do it this year, I pay for it. And if it happens to be the year before the renewal, I will renew next year. That is just the way that is set. You do not get a break.
Okay, that second part answered my next question, which was about, people who come in between those 5 years. And thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions on this budget account? Not seeing any other questions, we'll close the hearing on budget account 4546. Thank you so much to the department for your presentation and answering all of our questions. That brings us to the end of our budget hearings for the day and to our final item on the agenda, which is public comment. If there is anybody wishing to give public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come up to the front table now and take a seat. I don't see anybody coming up to take public comment, so we will go to the phones. Our call-in number, in case anybody is listening, dying to give public comment and didn't know how to call in, is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 898-985-58290. And we'll go to AVH now to see if there's anybody on the phone to give public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working, but there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.